everyone in sales is always super focused on closing the deal, and that's great. As a salesperson or a business owner, you should want to close business. Obviously, that's what we do, right? That's why we're here. But we've all had those times when you get a bad feeling about a deal and you think to yourself, maybe I shouldn't do business with this person. I know I've been there. How do you know when you should really walk away from a deal? Hey everyone, I'm Ian Campbell. I'm CEO of Mission Suite. Before we jump into today's video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. So as business owners and as salespeople, we have the tendency to focus on overcoming objections and getting the deal closed. We tend to think in terms of making sure that the prospect knows that we're qualified to be doing the work that we're proposing. Obviously, this is mostly a good thing. It's important to make sure that all the work that we do gets that kind of sign-off. Not only does it help move the deal along, but it also helps us to know that we're on the right track and we're offering something of value. Not to mention, it's a bit of an ego stroke. Let's not lie. The challenge with this thinking, though, is that it's pretty lopsided. Not only does it give the prospect the majority of the influence in the deal that you're working on, but it can also blind you to the realization that sometimes they're not qualified to be working with you. There are plenty of times that it's very clear that you need to walk away from a deal, and doing so can actually help you grow your business, even though it may seem counterintuitive because you're walking away from short-term cash flow, and I know that that can be painful. But you don't want that short-term cash to limit or stifle your ability to make long-term gains. So let's take a look at some of the reasons that you may want to walk away or maybe even run away from an opportunity. So first, you feel like you're constantly trying to square a circle to get your solution to work for them. This is probably the biggest red flag that I look for when deciding whether or not I want to do business with someone. At the end of the day, you have to acknowledge and truly be okay with the fact that you're really not meant to work with everyone. There are some people and some businesses for whom your solution is simply not going to be a fit, and that's okay. And because it's worth hearing twice, I'm going to say it again. That's okay. Because whether you consider yourself a salesperson or not, at the end of the day, you're in sales. And being in sales, it's in our nature to want to persuade people to see just how great what we're offering really is and how great we are. And that it's really their perspective that needs changing so that they can work with us. It's human nature because when we hear the word no, it feels like it's a slight on us. And that rings even more true when it comes to those of us in sales or those of us who own businesses, because we've connected ourselves so closely to these products and services that we're offering. But you have to remember that while you might be a perfect fit for some or even most, there will also be a lot of people that you come across who are simply better off using what they have, taking advantage of a different offer, or doing just about anything other than working with us. Remember, though, that when these occasions do come along, it's really a favor to you. If you have to spend a crazy amount of time bending over backwards to make your solution fit their needs during the sales process, how smoothly do you think it's going to go once you sign the deal? Do you really think that all of that backbending is really going to magically be resolved and they're just going to be able to easily work with you all of a sudden? Well, that's just not how it works. Because now that the deal's signed, all those promises that you made them now have to be delivered. Every adjustment, every modification, every customization that you offer them is going to be expected now. And if it doesn't work out like you said it would, guess who's going to be held responsible? You. Keep in mind that at the end of the day, you are the one responsible for the relationship with this client. Regardless of whether you're the one delivering services or you have a customer support team or what have you, someone's going to come back to you personally and ask you why you promised something that you couldn't deliver on. And it's just not worth it. If your offering isn't a natural fit for what the client's looking for, move on. There are plenty others for whom it will be. The next one is that this prospect proudly identifies themselves as being difficult to work with. There's an old saying that if it's not fun, why do it? Obviously, that's not going to apply in all work situations, but why would you want to work with someone who's made it clear that they're going to make working with them a challenge? I've worked with people like that in the past, and it's never worth it. But here's how I got myself into this mess, and it's happened on more than one occasion. I got them to talk to me in spite of the fact that they swore up and down that they weren't going to. right? At this point, I'm pretty impressed with myself because I got over that really big first hump, right? So now I'm so stoked on that accomplishment. I want to see how far I can take this. I want to see if I can get through to the next milestone. So I took a meeting with this prospect and we talked about what he was looking for. I told him what I could do for him. Ultimately, I was able to get him to open up to actually a pretty enjoyable and productive conversation, and eventually he agreed to do business with me. And as I was getting to the point where I was going to take his credit card, he looked at me straight in the eye and said, "I'm going to warn you, I'm really difficult to work with." He literally warned me directly to my face and I ignored it. At this point, though, I was so excited about the fact that I got this guy who had told me that he would never do business with me to a point where he was ready to sign in the line, that I thought that I could handle anything that he could throw at me. And man, was I wrong. Turns out, when someone tells you who they are, you really should take them at their word. Needless to say, this deal did not work out in my favor. I ended up stuck working on this project about 10 times the amount of time that I should have been, and could never make this guy happy. Eventually, we did part ways, and it was less than amicably, to say the least. The lesson that I took from this, though, is that it's just not worth trying to change someone's mind. The challenge might be fun and exciting to overcome, but if they don't want to deal with you from the get-go, then it's better to go off and find someone else that does. Next thing is that this prospect makes it clear that they expect you to work exclusively on their terms. This is a fun one, he says, oozing with sarcasm. Business, and by extension sales, is supposed to be a two-way street, right? The idea is that you're going to come to a mutual agreement for the way that you and your client are going to work together. But what if the person on the other side of the table just isn't willing to agree with anything that you propose? Instead, they constantly kick back with, "No, it has to happen this way." Now, I know you might be thinking, why would anyone work with someone like that? Right? I mean, because they just sound like a jerk, and usually they are. But there are a few reasons that I can think of as to why I've continued working on a deal in spite of this kind of an attitude in the past. Money has always been a big one. Either I was in a position where, in the business, where I just needed sales, so I turned a blind eye to this, or there was enough money on the table that I just ignored the red flag. Another reason that I remember vividly from when I was actually just starting out in sales was this assumption that this is just how business worked. The customer is always right, and I need to make sure that I'm doing what the customer wants. Well, again, I was wrong. If someone makes you finalize a deal explicitly on their terms, or even mostly on their terms, then that attitude is not going to go away once the ink dries. If you get that vibe, just walk away. It's really better off, and it's probably just not going to be worth it to do business with them. Have you ever worked with someone that you wish that you hadn't? Obviously, I know that I have. And I've paid for it, right? I've paid for it with lost productivity, frustration, more than a few headaches. If you've ever worked with someone you wish that you'd walked away from, drop down below this video and give it a like. And if you have a story, share it with us down in the comments and let the rest of us know that we're not alone. This next one's a bit more of a judgment call even than the others that I've talked about, and that's because they just don't fit with your style or culture. The culture and the style of your company is hugely important. It's that culture that allows for the long-term growth of your business. Now, not everyone's going to have the same business style or the culture as you are, nor should they. It's important and valuable to work with people irrespective of that company's culture. But the important question here is, can you find alignment between your culture and theirs? If yours is a culture of giving, of employees first, of learning and transparency, then you want to make sure that your clients can fit with those ideals. For example, if they're a churn and burn call center with a zero tolerance policy when it comes to making mistakes and they don't care too much about personal growth, well, then they're probably not going to be a good fit for you. Nor, for that matter, will they end up as a long-term client, and they're going to really bring down your team in the process. And as the people who have to deal with that client get disheartened, that attitude can spread to the people that they're working with, and next thing you know, your entire team is dreading coming into work. And finally, you just get a bad feeling from them. There's a lot to be said for good old-fashioned intuition. If you feel like there's a reason not to do business with someone, then it's more than likely that you're picking up on something that's telling you that. Don't ignore it. Explore it and see if you can figure out what it is that's giving you that feeling. It may not end up being a reason to let the business go, and that's something that obviously you're going to have to decide. But if you get a bad feeling from someone before closing the deal, even if you can't put your finger on it, you're going to be much better off if you can figure out why you're getting that feeling so that you can go into that deal with your eyes wide open. Again, I've made this mistake in the past. I've ignored a little discomfort that I was getting from a prospect that I was getting ready to close, and I ultimately regretted it almost every time. And if I'm being honest, I can think of 3 or 4 times off the top of my head when this has been the case. Remember, if you think you should walk away, you should probably walk away. Obviously, these reasons to walk away from a deal that I've highlighted here in this video are very personal to me. They're identified from my own personal experience, and after 20 years of sales and business experience, I've had a lot of it. I've dealt with a lot of them. So I want to know your experiences. More importantly, I want to know how you're making sure that you never have to deal with those experiences again. So drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts down there. I hope you got something out of this video, and if you did, go ahead, do me a favor, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, maybe give it a share so that others can see it too. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. And while you're at it, go ahead and check out the videos on your screen, and we will see you next time around. Cheers.